Welcome to All Things Financial with Jack Driscoll.
Welcome back again, everyone, to another edition of All Things Financial. We're privileged to have a guest on the last couple weeks, Colin Morgan from Julian Associates. Welcome back again, Colin.
Thanks for having me.
You know, what we are involved with is a discussion of legal issues at every stage in life. And we've reached a stage here on this show where we're going to start talking about what happens when you retire or you're aging and you're 65 years old, you're very healthy, and you get to the point where maybe the kids are starting to recognize at your age 70 or 75, you're starting to slip a little bit, or your spouse is starting to slip. They're noticing memory issues, or you're not just the way you used to be. So, Colin, I'll turn it over to you. We get in this elementary stage of, something's changing with mom and dad.
Absolutely. And this is, and what we talked about right before this is the meat and potatoes of elder law planning. Mm-hmm. This is where we made our reputation. This is where, our industry was born from. So what we're looking at is really the elder care journey. Okay, so you start at home, everybody's fine, everybody's independent, and maybe you have a diagnosis or a medical event where you need some care in the home, or you need a care setting, like an assisted living facility or a personal care home. And I think that this is our focus for this segment. And so what we're seeing is people who are used to paying very little for medical care. They're paying their insurance premiums, and maybe somebody's coming by to do the dishes and take out the trash, and they're paying them $50 a month or something like that. Now what we're seeing is people transition to needing care in the home, which can be very expensive. It can cost up to $5,000 or $6,000 per month, depending on how much care you need. And then we're looking at assisted living facilities, which again costs around $5,000 or $6,000, or personal care homes, which can be $7,000 to $8,000 and sometimes even $9,000, depending on the care need. Now, when you're a working person and you're bringing in your income, this money doesn't, or this amount of money per month is still a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
But you're still contributing to you're still contributing from an income perspective. But our folks are on fixed incomes. Maybe they have a pension. They certainly have Social Security, and maybe they have their required minimum distributions from their IRAs, and these are their principal forms of income. And I can tell you that 99 out of 100 clients do not have enough to cover $5,000 or $6,000 per month in assisted living care.
Right.
So this is where we look at, if they had the foresight to work with a professional to get, long-term care insurance. This is where we activate that policy. But also with our veterans, okay, there's a great benefits program out there for them, which can really help, stem off some of these costs.
If they're a veteran?
If they're a wartime veteran, yes.
Okay. Does it have to be the veteran themselves?
Yeah, actually, a great question. It could be the veteran. It could be his or her spouse. It could be his or her surviving spouse. So the veteran doesn't even have to be around anymore. Now, there are stratified benefit limits depending on which person is applying. A veteran applying with his or her spouse, that's the highest amount, all the way down to the surviving spouse gets the lowest. Okay. Now the lowest is $1,100 per month.
So that's not bad.
That's a pretty good thing. A person on a fixed income, and you being a financial advisor, you know how much you have to have in the bank to get $1,100 net per month.
Right.
And that's not a small amount of money. And that's something that's important. It's all tax-free from the Veterans Affairs benefit, or it's called the Aid and Attendance Benefits Program. Okay. So, not a lot of people know about this benefits program. This is, we call it the hidden benefit. Last time, we looked at a consensus of this, it was less than 7% of the people who could be getting this benefits program were on it.
Really?
Absolutely. And the primary reason because of this is lack of information or misinformation.
So they're missing a benefit.
Yep.
Just flat missing it.
Yep. And what happens is they've been told, well, you're over-resourced, or you have too much in income, no way you'll be able to qualify for this benefits program, or they've just never heard of it. Now, doing stuff like this and getting our message out there helps, with the latter, but with the former, and the scariest thing is the primary source of this misinformation is the Department of Veterans Affairs. Okay? So a lot of my clients will say, well, the VA told me if I have somewhere between $80,000 and $50,000 to my name, I'm going to qualify for this benefits program. So I went and applied, and then I was denied for being over-resourced. So I just figured I was done.
Okay.
And so, we're working with World War II veterans and Korean War veterans, primarily at this point. We're seeing more and more, Vietnam vets. But with these, the greatest generation, right, we're seeing they're very polite people. So if you tell somebody, well, sorry, it's not going to work out, they go, okay, and they will figure it out. They've survived worse things. I don't have to be polite for my clients. I could say, no, we're getting this benefits program.
Yeah.
And so what we get into, we use planning techniques from an asset perspective and an income perspective to help qualify, our individuals, our veterans for these benefits programs. So, and there's a wide range of things. Primarily among these, though, is the trust that I talked about in the last segment. We call this an asset protection trust.
Okay.
It's a term that means whatever you put into the trust is locked away for VA purposes. Okay, the VA cannot count whatever goes into that trust.
Okay.
It's a restrictive trust. Oftentimes, this doesn't matter from a lifestyle perspective for the client, because if the client is working through his or her children for the day-to-day business, bill paying, working with the financial advisor, CPA, they don't have that autonomy that they're giving up to use this trust.
Okay.
But we still have safeguards. We allow for the changing of trustees. We allow for independent special trustees and trust protectors, all these different, kind of high-level discussion topics here, but that we can put into these trusts and shade in to make sure that there is autonomy, or at least some decision-making by the individual. But from a lifestyle perspective, if you're in an assisted living facility and applying for these benefits, you're not going to realize a large lifestyle change by going into this.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, you get to the situation where when we talk about the VA and assets into the trust, there's no time frame, or?
Well, right now, unlike, medical assistance benefits makes you wait 5 years when you
Right.
use one of these trusts. They say, great, you can use this, but you're going to pay out of pocket for 5 years, and then we'll let you on.
Okay.
The Department of Veterans Affairs offers precisely 0 look-back period.
Yeah. So
So-
you need people to get into this discussion phase
Right.
early.
Now's the time to plan.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because especially if the kids are starting to show or starting to sense potential problems, we don't wait to see if that might get better.
Right. No. And part of this is, right now it's wide open. We can get people onto Veterans Affairs benefits very quickly.
Okay.
The problem with this is that now we're looking at the VA setting up a look-back period. And it makes sense. It's how all this works. You have a benefits program that needs to remain funded. It needs to still have money in it. And the easiest way to stay funded is to limit the amount of applicants.
Right.
So the first tactic is to, again, put this look-back period into play. So, right now, again, they've used kind of every dirty trick to try to get it in, but it hasn't been able to get in. It got shot down by Congress twice, because what politician's going to walk up to a podium and say, well, we're going to limit veterans' benefits?
I see.
Okay, that's political suicide.
I see.
So it doesn't go through Congress, and now they're trying to do it internally. Now,
Okay.
to me, that's unconstitutional, but, who are you going to sue? At this
When's
point?
too early to think about this? And when's, like, I would think a lot of people are looking at this thinking, I'm not ready yet, it's not time yet, we have to wait till later. And you might say, no, it's not too
Right.
early. When is that? And then when is it too early?
Right. So functionally, it's never too early. I would put a house into a trust that would be qualified for these.
What do you have to
benefits
do to
programs.
qualify though?
So you have to put enough resources into trust or out of your name that you are under whatever their asset limit is to get you onto the benefits program. And there's a pretty complicated calculation that looks at what your shortfall is based on medical costs every month versus your life expectancy.
Do you
all
have to
this stuff.
medically qualify?
Yes.
What's the test that says unless you have this wrong with you, don't apply?
Right.
But if you start having something wrong, this is what we're looking for. You might qualify.
So that's a great question. So really, it's you need to be found in need of regular aid and attendance.
Oh, okay.
And so that's a legal term of art that means 2 of your activities of daily living require assistance. Activities of daily living are something a lot of people don't think about because we just do them automatically. Yeah. When you wake up and you sit up and you put your feet on the ground and stand up, that's an activity of daily living. That's transferring. When you use the restroom, that's also an activity of daily living. Take a shower, brush your teeth, that's another one. All of these things we take for granted, okay, because we're young, we're healthy, we don't have these problems. Right. But if you need assistance with two of those, you will qualify from a medical perspective for the VA Aid and Attendance Benefits Program. So it's funny, a lot of people think it's based on age. You know, they go, okay, when I turn 65, maybe I get on this benefits program. Okay. I had an 84-year-old guy drive himself to my office with his golf clubs in the back seat, tell me that he had to get out of the meeting because he had ballroom dance lessons before a quick nine with his buddies. And I said, "You're not getting on this benefits program. You have the best problem you could ever ask for." You know, so age. I've learned very quickly in my industry, age is just a number. But we need to examine exactly what activities of daily living people need assistance with. Okay. And there are VA forms that you send to the primary care physician that allows for that analysis.
And then you're saying once somebody's starting to show some signs, and they may qualify medically or mentally, then the assets-wise, that's where your skills come in, right, and strategies on, hey, even if you've been denied, we think we can work very hard and get a lot of people who were denied that decision reversed and get them qualified for benefits.
Exactly. And so what happens is it's very complicated. Okay, so, but to try to boil it down like I do for my clients, there's no set asset limit with the VA. They'll tell you $50,000 to $80,000 and they'll deny you all day. Okay. So what the qualification really is they look at your monthly medical expense shortfall. So they take your gross income and then they subtract how much you're paying each month for medical expenses. Then they look at how long you're going to live. So they multiply that out. They say you're going to make X amount of dollars over the rest of your life expectancy. Mm-hmm. And they compare that figure to how much you have in resources. Okay. If that shortfall is larger than what you have in resources over your lifetime, then you qualify. Wow. So that's not a hard and fast number. Wow. And they use their own chart for life expectancy. So you can't even look up the actuarial chart, even for like our kind of stuff, for like life insurance and all that. It's very complicated, and they really stack up the odds, against a lot of applicants, and especially people who are just applying. And even the application process is difficult. I'm a licensed attorney. It took me almost a year to figure out how to get one of these things done right.
Is that right?
Absolutely. My assistant, who I work with, is an absolute just expert in getting these applications done. It's all these little nuances, checking the right boxes, filling out the right thing. For example, and this is something that I just thought was crazy, and this is what you get when you work with the government, is that if something doesn't apply to you, you have to write not applicable in every line. Mm-hmm. If you don't, in every single line it's not applicable, and there are a lot in every application, they'll deny you.
Really?
Because they don't have enough information, is what they say. Okay. So, and if you try to ask the Veterans Affairs a question, it's almost impossible to get in touch with them.
So that's why a lot of people aren't getting them.
Right. You have to get it right the first time. You have to get the application just so, and get it in so the VA has no excuse to not, allow you onto the benefits program. Okay.
And then there's more for people where you say, hey, we need to start protecting assets either for the spouse at home or for the kids' inheritance or whatever, but we need to protect the assets.
Right.
So there's also medical assistance programs through the Department of Public Welfare and the VA. So talk about those a little bit, I guess.
Sure, absolutely. So, medical assistance benefits are, their own animal. Okay, they are separate from the VA, and they supply a lot of funding and a lot of resources for individuals who are in need of skilled nursing care. So there's a much higher, limit that you have to meet from a medical need perspective. You basically have to be nursing home eligible. So they're not just going to let anybody in. And so there are really two styles of medical assistance benefits for our folks, for our planning folks. Now, there's the indigent medical care, which doesn't matter. It doesn't, it matters not what your health level is. If you just can't afford medical insurance, then you get on to that. But for most of our clients who are on Medicare and they have their own private medical insurance that they've been paying for years, this is what medical assistance is, what helps you pay for that $9,000 to $12,000 per month medical expense in a nursing home. So that's what this pays for.
$9,000 to $12,000.
Right, absolutely. And a lot of my clients, when I introduce the idea of medical assistance, they go, well, I worked my whole life. I don't need welfare. And I go, can you afford $120,000 per year in medical expenses? They go, well, no. And I go, this is what that benefits program is designed for, really.
I see. Yeah. So what are the steps they have to take if that looks like their potential future?
Well, this is a very strict means-based benefits program. This means that you can't have more, depending on your income. It's either $8,000 if you're a low-income applicant or around $2,400 if you're a high-income applicant.
Okay.
You have to have a very low limit in resources, and there's a lot of planning considerations. If you are a married couple who's applying, half of your resources have to be spent down to that level.
Okay.
So they take the entire marital estate, they divide it in half, okay, and that half has to be spent down to $8,000 or $2,400.
Okay.
And this is if you're applying now. This is the crisis plan.
Right.
This is dad's in a rehabilitation facility after a stroke or a fall, and the doctor just told us he's not coming home. He's in long-term care. So that's very very complicated planning. Now a facility is going to make it look really easy. They're going to say, well, you need to spend down $100,000. Just pay for us for the better part of a year, and we'll get you on to medical assistance benefits. As a client advocate, I think that that's a terrible solution. Right?
Really?
I mean, even as a financial advisor, you think it's a good idea to spend half your money, right?
Yeah.
No, of course not. If you can get something of value out of that money, or if you can recharacterize an asset, to qualify for this benefit, well, you might as well go for it, right?
Okay.
So let's look at to go into this discussion, we can look at a bunch of different angles, and this might even pour over a little bit. But the best case scenario is a client talked to me 10 or 15 years ago, and I got a bunch of their resources into a trust, and it's free and clear for medical assistance. We don't even have to report it on the application. That's the best case scenario. A lot of other tools, when we have to spend down, and say we have to spend down $100,000, just to use round math, because lawyers are terrible at math. This is why we're lawyers. So using round numbers, say we have $100,000 to spend down, and say it's a married couple. There are a lot of options for that, for that family that might not be available, or that they might not think is available based on the conversations that they've had. They can purchase what's called an irrevocable burial account. An irrevocable burial account allows a person to set aside a certain amount of money with a funeral home or related organization to pay for their end-of-life costs, their funeral and everything surrounding that. And the county allows for a certain amount of money to go in for each person. So, that would be about $25,000 for both individuals. So we can knock off a quarter of it right there. Now, lawyers write laws. So legal fees are part of that spend down. Okay, so whatever the application cost can also come out of that spend down amount. But say we've exhausted everything else. You're allowed to buy personal items. You're allowed to buy clothing, medical apparatus, a car, things like that. Say we've done all of that, and there's still $50,000 left to spend down.
Okay.
We can use what's called a spousal annuity. Okay, so we can use a medical assistance compliant annuity to get rid of the rest of that money for medical assistance perspective. So this is one of the first conversations that we had that kind of, it was a generated me coming in today. Was when do you deploy these annuities, and how do they work?
Right.
So medical assistance right now says that an annuity, if it's qualified for medical assistance, is no longer an asset. It's simply an income stream. So this means that if you take that $50,000 and you annuitize it, okay, and you pay it to the spouse, not the individual applying for medical assistance, that works. That gets rid of that money, and that's a really strong planning tool. And a lot of people don't know that option's out there. It takes a savvy financial advisor working with an attorney, who understands this to get it done properly.
Now, are you saying there's no look-back period on that, or there is a look-back period, or?
There is no look-back period on a medical assistance compliant annuity. Now, this isn't your typical annuity. I've said this to advisors, a bunch of times where they say, trying to be proactive, right? They say, well, let's get, medical assistance compliant annuity because we know these folks might need care, and so let's get it done now. The problem with that is it's a terrible investment product. Okay, there's no growth. This isn't something you sell and it's really great for the client.
Okay.
As far as a growth measure is concerned, what it does is it has to pay equal monthly payments. Okay, and it has to be actuarially sound.
Okay.
And the Commonwealth has to be the first beneficiary if the person passes away during the term of the annuity. All these qualifications. Okay. So you have to set it up that way. So what you hope happens, or what you set up a short term in an annuity as possible.
Okay.
Because you want to get all the money over to the healthy spouse as quickly as you can, because you don't want the individual to pass away during that period.
And it moves that over to the healthy spouse.
Yes.
And gets that off the table.
Absolutely. And it's a great plan. It's a last stopgap measure. It's still a lot of things could happen before that would be a nicer way of planning all this. But when I have clients come in, I say that even if it's a worst case scenario where we can't do any of these pre-planning measures, you still have this outlet. You still have this solution. So there's always a solution.
So there are a lot of solutions at these different stages, especially once symptoms or signs start becoming evident.
Right.
It's go time.
Right.
With the attorneys.
Absolutely. I mean, the earlier I can work with a client, the better my result will be.
Okay. What I'd like to do, if it's okay, is come back next week and let's engineer into this 7 years in advance, 5 years in advance, 3 years in advance, the time being imminent. And maybe for some of you listening and watching, what do we do when it's too late and our parents are already in a nursing home and their assets are in the course of being spent on? Is there any help available there? Is there?
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll be back again next week. We'll try to wrap that up and answer your questions, especially the whole way down through that time frame. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks again, Colin, for being with us.
Thank you.
We'll be back again next week. Colin, can you help everyone listening and watching on how to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So there are 3 great ways to get in touch with us. First off, you can visit our website. That's grayelderlaw.com. Secondly, you can email me directly. That's Colin, Colin, at grayelderlaw.com. Or you can give us a call at our front office. That's 412-458-6000. And what will happen at that point is you'll talk to our triage staff, who they're absolute experts. They know more than most people, more than a lot of attorneys about what we do. And they'll get a lot of good information for me, okay, so I can start to formulate a plan proposal. And we'll have you in for a no-risk consultation. That means that if you decide that, not go with us, or if I decide that you don't need our services, then it's not going to cost you anything. So we think that creates a really good open relationship, with the firm right off the bat. So basically, those are 3 ways to get in touch. And if you need us, we're always around. So feel free to give a call or email. Thank you.
You've been listening to All Things Financial with your friend with the answers to all financial matters, Jack Driscoll of Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Sage Point Financial Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer and registered investment advisor and member FINRA and SIPC. Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services is not affiliated with Sage Point Financial, Inc. or registered as a broker, dealer, or investment advisor. You can reach Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services Incorporated at 412-833-1500, and they are located at 2738 South Park Road, Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, 15102.